Hello world and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. I'm Nikkirenae. This is Junie B. And today is my spring seasonal reading vlog. Are you gonna sit there the whole time? Because if I start moving, you're gonna get mad at me, and I know it and you know it. Are you gonna sit there the whole time? So the spring books were throwing me for a very big loop. I feel like every other season is so much easier to figure out books for. The only book I could figure out was the literal staples for the first 4 of these videos, which is the Love Light Farms videos by BK Borison. So outside of just Love Light Farms, I genuinely could not figure out what to do next, and I was looking all over the place. And then it just hit me today, and I don't know why it didn't hit me sooner, to look for TikTok, because it's literally spring. And they did not disappoint. So I curated a big list on my phone for all 4 seasons. I've picked out 3 books for this video. They've all been anticipated for at least a few months, at most a few years. I'm excited. I think I'm going to like them. I think it's going to be a really good time. So let's get into the actual books. So first up, like I said, is In the Weeds by BK Borison. This is the second book to the Love Light Farms series. There's actually a criteria that I was also trying to do for these videos where it wasn't going to be books in a series. The only reason these are an exception is because each book is set in a different season and it follows a different couple, so they're interconnected standalone seasonal romances. Evelyn St. James isn't the kind of woman you forget. Beckett Porter certainly hasn't. One incredible weekend in Maine, and he's officially a man distracted. He's not unfamiliar with hot and heavy flings, but Evie wove some sort of magic over him during their tumble in the sheets. He can't stop thinking about her laugh, her hand pressed flat against his chest, her smiling mouth at his neck. So, when she suddenly appears on his farm as part of a social media contest, he is confused. He had no idea that the sweet and sexy woman he met at a bar is actually a global phenomenon. When Evie disappears again, Beckett resolves to finally move on. But Evie, who has been feeling disconnected from her work and increasingly dissatisfied with life online, is trying to find her way back to something real. She returns to the last place she was happy, Love Light Farms, in the tiny town of Inglewild. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the hot farmer she spent 2 unforgettable nights with. So I read Love Light Farms, the first one, in December. I did my little video for that, and it was a fun time, and I liked most of those books. I did like Love Light Farms. I felt like it went a little bit fast for my taste, but they were childhood friends to lovers. They were childhood fake dating friends to lovers. So I get why it was faster than what I would have anticipated it to be. And if this one ends up being sort of fast like Love Light Farms, then I would also understand that as well, because it's a second chance romance. This is the only adult book in this lineup, so it's the only one that would be fast-paced in like intimate scenes that would feel super fast-paced to me. This book has been anticipated for me for about a year. If you didn't see the other video where I did my winter Christmas reads, I found out about the Love Light Farms series right after Christmas in 2023. Even though they're interconnected standalones, they still have a timeline, and I'm the kind of person who has to start with the first book no matter what. It's just a thing. I don't know why. It just is my thing. Next is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I'm so excited. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I think it's so cute. I actually have this one and Betting on You, and I thought about doing both of them in this video, but I also thought about doing First Time Caller by BK Borison, and then I decided that I'm not allowed to do more than one book by the same author. Liz Buxbaum has always known that Wes Bennett was not boyfriend material. You would think that her next-door neighbor would be a prime candidate for her romantic comedy fantasies, but Wes has only proven himself to be a pain in the butt ever since they were little. Wes was the kid who put a frog in her Barbie dream house, the monster who hid a lawn gnome's severed head in her little homemade neighborhood book exchange. Flash forward 10 years from the great gnome decapitation. It's Liz's senior year, a time meant to be rife with milestones, perfect for any big screen, and she needs Wes's help. Liz's forever crush, Michael, has just moved back to town, and, horribly, annoyingly, he's hitting it off with Wes. Meaning that if Liz wants Michael to finally notice her, and hopefully be her prom date, she needs Wes. He's her in. But as Liz and Wes scheme to get Liz her magical prom moment, she's shocked to discover that she actually likes being around Wes. And as they continue to grow closer, she must re-examine everything she thought she knew about love, and rethink her own perception of what happily ever after should really look like. And this one has been anticipated for a few months now, basically just as long as I've had this, and I think I got this in January or February because I was seeing it everywhere and they came out with new edges, and I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for edges. So the last book has been anticipated, on my radar, on my TBR, waiting for me to finally get back to it and read it for years. I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is such a fun and interesting concept to a book, and I'm very excited to get... Oh my god, what happened there? Oh wow, what is that? Can you see that? Oh shoot. Oh, you definitely cannot see that. Oh no, you can. You can. Right in here, there's something happening with the pages. I have no idea what happened, how that happened, when that happened. That's lovely. Anywho, I think this is a specific, like, special edition of this, perhaps, but I'm not very sure because the title is not on the front. It's just a quote. We were all heading for each other on a collision course, no matter what. Maybe some people are just meant to be in the same story. At first, Jude and her twin brother are Noah and Jude, inseparable. Noah draws constantly and is falling in love with the charismatic boy next door, while daredevil Jude cliff dives and does all the talking for both of them. Years later, they are barely speaking. Something has happened to change the twins in different yet equally devastating ways. But then Jude meets an intriguing, irresistible boy and a mysterious new mentor. The early years are Noah's to tell. The later years are Jude's. But they each have only half the story, and if they can find their way back to one another, they'll have a chance to remake their world. So I think this is obviously going to revolve around family and things, and I'm very excited. I think there are some heavier topics, if I remember, but it's mostly, I think, light and sort of whimsical in how it handles those topics. This is the TBR. These are the books in the lineup. I'm not sure what I want to start with, actually. I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, let's number them and then ask Siri for a number. So, 1, 2, 3, just like that. Hey Siri, pick a number 1 through 3.
A random number between 1 and 3 is 1.
Okay, so we're gonna start with In the Weeds. I'm going to get comfy with Junie. Oh, I did not mention, but it's actually Friday, so I've got like the whole weekend. I'm excited. I'm prepared. I'm excited. This is gonna be fun. I don't know if there's anything that goes with this or behind this, or if there's any like thought behind this, or if this is just funny, but it's very interesting because Beckett specifically says that Evie smells like lemons and rosemary, and I was just reading the first 2 books of the Castor Chronicles, and Lena Duquesne smells like lemons and rosemary. That's just such a funny coincidence, and the amount of coincidences like that I've had in my books lately is just so weird. I finally made it to chapter 1, and the prologue was a little bit longer than most prologues. I think it was 15 pages, so that's a bit long. But it was really interesting because it had sections in Beckett and Evie's points of view. I was confused for a second because we started actually back in August and then it skipped to November and I was like, are we getting to spring anytime soon? Hello? What? And we do. Actually, chapter 1 is in March. So there's that. But that's really interesting. And I wonder if we'll have anything similar to that with the last 2 books of the series, with the last 2 couples. I don't remember exactly what romances they are. Like I said, Love Light Farms was a childhood fake dating romance. I don't think I can say what I said earlier again. And then this one is a second chance romance. There's reasons for why it started way back in summer and winter before finally settling into spring. I'm very excited to keep going to see how things will be handled differently in this new season with these new people in this couple. I'm excited. I'm so excited to see all the characters from the first installment, especially Stella and Luca. They were the main characters, and I'm very excited to see how their relationship has progressed since the end of Love Light Farms. But yeah, so far I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm very excited for this vlog and these books, and I'm very excited that I have this channel and that I'm reading more. Now I just need to start editing more. Hello, so it is the next day and I thought I would give you my initial thoughts of In the Weeds. I am 72 pages in out of I think 300. Without the acknowledgements in the bonus chapter, it's 305. So I'm about a third of the way through actually. So that's really fun. I am neutral at the moment. I don't love it, I don't hate it. It's interesting, and I think part of this is that I'm going to sort of compare it. I'm not like comparing it to Love Light Farms, but because I have that initial book to go off of with themes and tropes and things that are going on in here, that's just how I'm going to explain some of this. So it's not that there's anything wrong with the book. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I can tell that I'm going to probably enjoy it, and I really feel like I can identify with both of our main characters, Beckett and Evie, decently well. So some problems that I'm having with it is that it's sort of slow at the beginning, and I cannot stand a slow beginning. Stuff needs to happen. And with Love Light Farms, we were literally put smack dab in the middle of things happening. Like, things were already happening. And I feel like the thing about In the Weeds is that things aren't necessarily happening as quickly because there is groundwork to be laid for this relationship, for all of the lore between them to make sense. And that's perfectly fine. I just felt like once we had that lore sort of cemented down and explained, that we didn't need as much prep work to continue happening. And I don't think it's necessarily that some of the prep work was not necessarily needed, but we got 4 chapters basically before they were seeing each other again and in person. And now I can safely say that things are about to start happening for sure. There's a specific trope happening here, and I'm not going to tell you because it is not in the back. I think it might be a slight spoiler. So basically, I just feel like we didn't need 70 pages. We didn't need a third of the book almost to just lay the groundwork. That felt like a little bit much for me. I'm definitely the kind of person who would prefer things to just happen quicker. However, there is still so much to go through, so I'm very excited to continue this, see how their relationships develop, see how these characters develop, and how they develop with each other. I think some of that groundwork was to show how they are without each other so that we could have a really fun time seeing how they evolve together. So I'm very excited for that, and I think it's going to be good. I felt like I was going a little bit slow with this. It took me a really long time to get to 75 or 72. I think it was partly content-based and also partly just because the font is just really small. And it was evidently so basically right when I started, because a book that a series I just read recently was middle grade, and the font was a lot bigger. So I basically flew through those books. And getting into this and some of the other books that I'm reading was just wild to see that sort of difference happening. It was really strange. Oh my god, I totally forgot to mention, but we have seen Stella and Luca and Layla and all of my favorites from the first book again, and it is so funny because they were so funny and they're just as funny now. It's the duck! It's the duck! It's the dog. Johnny, it's the dog. Hello! So, I think the last time I spoke to you might have been Friday. Oh my god, dog hair. Might have been Friday or Saturday, I don't know. I haven't really had time to read this week. I did just read some last night. So, I've actually just made it to page 212, which is so fun. It is Thursday, so it's been a while. I've been reading this for a little while now. It's just the end of the semester. I am really enjoying this. Like I said before, this one's going much slower, I think, than Love Light Farms, despite how they have had a weekend one-night stand situation. It's going slower than the best friends fake dating to lovers. However, given our main characters and everything that they're going through in this book, I feel like it makes a lot of sense. So I'm not mad at it. So where I am right now, things are finally picking up. I think I said things were going to be picking up 50 pages ago or something. I don't even remember, but they did not. Like, some things were happening, it just wasn't necessarily relationship things. So there were two things that I actually really wanted to talk about right now, and I think I've decided that I might not do spoilers in this video. We shall see. But the first thing is that there's something really drastic and dramatic and a big deal that happens in this book, and I'm unsure if it was really necessary for the plot or the characters. It seemed like something that was just kind of thrown in because it didn't seem like it seemed like it was thrown in as a way to continue the things that had been building up, and there just didn't seem to be another way to progress that continuation, I guess. Like, things have been built, things have been laid out, the plot, the character arcs, relationships, things have been established. And it seemed like one specific thing that happened in this that was very drastic and dramatic, it seemed like that was added because the author felt like they didn't know what else to do, if that makes sense. I love spoilers, so I'm struggling to explain this without just saying what it is. But it was a very extreme thing, and I don't understand why we needed that, if that makes sense. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which I thought was just kind of funny once I realized it, because then I just kept realizing that. You know when you read a book or anything and there's just a specific word or phrase that is used often enough that you notice it, and then you just kind of start looking for it? I got that in this. So it's such a particular thing, which is why I noticed it, that it's not even very unusual. It's just something that I was like, why is this how you're explaining it every single time? I don't understand. But the specific thing is that every time a character goes to grab something or set something down or looks at something, whatever, it's at their elbow. Genuinely. Like, there's so many instances, and it was like 4 or 5 times in just one chapter where a character would try and grab something, would reach for something, set something down, and it's at their elbow. And I understand what's being said. Like, I totally get it. I was just, why are we saying the same thing over and over and over and over? It's beside them. Like, I get it. It's right there. But at their elbow was just such an interesting choice, I felt. I'm going to go ahead and update all my reading tracker apps. So Goodreads says I'm about 63% through. Hardcover also says 63. Storygraph says 64. I think this is balancing somewhere between a 3 and a 4. Something that I really enjoyed about this is that Beckett has social anxiety and sound sensitivity. I don't think I've ever related to a character as much as I relate to Beckett, because genuinely the descriptions of social anxiety and sound sensitivity and his struggles with that within crowded, loud places, or just crowded places with minimal sounds, or even just family dinner or something, it's so real and authentic, and I relate so bad. And you might not know this because I'm doing YouTube, so you might not know, but I actually have really bad anxiety, and I've struggled with social anxiety for a really long time. So I think this book I might like a little bit more than Lovelight, which would make sense, I feel, because Lovelight was, I believe, B.K. Borison's debut novel. And so I think it would make sense for, if you like a first book, then you might start to like subsequent books a bit more, just because that means that the author is honing their craft, becoming better at what they do, and evolving, and usually that's a good thing. So I think it makes a lot of sense that I would like this one a little bit more than the first one, and I'm intrigued to see what happens with the next 2. Those are my thoughts so far. I'm still deciding between a 3 and a 4. I think some things have been dragged out a little bit much, and there are some things that have happened that I don't understand why we're not getting more information about that. So something that I wish we could have gotten a little bit more context with, especially given that this is a dual point of view novel, and one of the point of views is always talking about how, well, I guess Evie is always mentioning how Beckett is in his greenhouse. Okay, and then he explained why, and it's not really a spoiler, it's something we find out within like the first 50 pages. So they found a duckling on the farm, and Beckett has basically taken in the duckling, I think. I wonder if that's going to have any sort of significance in the last 100-ish pages. They found a duckling on the farm, so Beckett has basically taken it in, and Evie mentions a lot that he's in the greenhouse, and she doesn't know why, and then he explains one day that it's because of a duck. And there's a lot going on with this duck. He's doing so much with this duck, but we don't ever get any information unless it's from Evie, and I don't get it. Hopefully we will get more information on that. Hopefully this last 100-ish pages I can get to soon, and hopefully I end up enjoying this book. However, just to like point this out, a 3 or a 4 star is still great. I'm a very hard 5-star reviewer, and I'm not going to give it a partial star. I don't give partial star ratings. That's what I have to say so far. I am enjoying the book. I'm excited to finish it. I'm excited to get on to the other 2. I will see you whenever I next see you. Okay, as you just saw, I've officially finished In the Weeds. I liked this a lot more than I thought I would, actually. I think it's going to be, oh gosh, I don't know, actually. This whole time I've been thinking perhaps a 4-star, but I'm debating on whether or not it really deserves a 5. I think I'm going to stick with 4. I think if I'm on the fence with 5, then that means that it's probably not a 5, and I'm stingy with my 5s. So, I'm going to give it a 4-star. Oh my gosh, this was adorable. There are so many things about it that I liked. There are some things that I was iffy on, but I think the whole story just comes together really well. I love the ending. I love the character development that we see is just so top tier. It's so good. I wasn't going to record reading the bonus chapter, and then I started reading it and I was like, no, actually I have to, because it's so funny and it's so on par for them. It is set, no, that's not. The epilogue is set a year later, so I wonder exactly when the next book, which is Mixed Signals, is going to be set in the timeline of things, because it seems that it's a chronological development of these relationships in this universe. So obviously Stella and Luca were first, and then Evie and Beckett came second, and then next is Layla and Caleb. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work out, but this isn't about Mixed Signals, this is about In the Weeds! Oh my gosh, it was such a fun time. I think the last time I spoke to you I had about 100 pages left, and then I just had about 50 pages left today because I read some last night, and things were getting good. I think it was just done so well. The characters were tiptoeing around a lot of conversations. I think they were just scared, you know, and that's so real. I think B.K. Borison just does a really good job of making real characters, believable characters. They're dynamic. They're not cardboard cutouts. They're not static. They are changing and evolving. They have character development, and it's just done really, really well. And I think from what I remember from Love Light, which I remember a lot because that's not the point. I think you can definitely see her improvements from her debut book to her second book with this, and it's done so well. I will say I did notice another thing that was often said. Like I said earlier, there were a lot of times when things were at a character's elbow, and I realized that was only really prevalent in like the middle section of the book, which was interesting. It didn't really carry in to the ending or anything, and I don't remember it being so prevalent at the beginning, so that was odd. But then I noticed another thing where I think it was at least Beckett, maybe also Evie. They were always doing things with the palm of their hand specifically. They were never really doing things with their hand in general. It was just always the palm, which was odd. And it took me out of the story just a tad. So I feel like for that, a 4 is a good thing. I think the ending was probably my favorite part of the whole book. There was just so many things that were coming together. But I think the thing that I loved the most about Love Light, the series, and that I'm hoping is a theme that continues, which I think it will continue because they're all in the same town and it's a small town, is just the theme of camaraderie, found family, connections that happen in this community because they all know each other and they're all just so welcoming, and it's just adorable. As somebody who is from a small town, I really love that. There are a lot of books that I think have interesting takes on small towns, but I think this one is the most authentic that I've ever really encountered. Like, it makes the most sense to me. So overall, those are my thoughts. I really liked In the Weeds. I felt a little bit slow with it at some times. I think there were some filler things that didn't necessarily need to be in there. Overall, I just really enjoyed it. I loved the character progression. I loved the arcs, the plot. I loved that in this one, there wasn't as much emphasis on a physical element to the relationship, whereas with Luca and Stella, there was a bit more, which, to be fair, I think that just lends itself to the fake dating trope. So I really liked that this one dealt a lot more with the emotional aspects of the characters and their relationship. There were some things that I didn't like I've said, but overall, I did enjoy this, and I'm very happy that I've read it, and I'm very excited for summer and fall to come so I can continue the series. And on that note, I am very excited to get to the next 2 books of the video. So I just updated my reading apps, and assuming that they're correct, because sometimes when I go back there and adjust things, they're not entirely right, but it does look good as far as I'm seeing. I'm very proud to say that I have finished 13 books this year, so I am at 13 of my goal of 52. As a refresher, the 2 other books that I'm reading for my spring video is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson and Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. And I could not decide which one I wanted to read first. I had reasons for both. There were just pros and cons to both, so I could not decide. So I decided to put a poll onto my Threads account asking what I should read, and I did this really early in the morning when I could not sleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it seems like Better Than the Movies has won. So that's the book that I'll be starting. I'm very excited. I'm nervous because you might not know or you might not have seen, but a habit that I have had for literally years, since like the 5th grade or something, since I really started reading, is just playing with the corners of books while I'm reading, and I am hoping that doesn't mess with the edges, because I love the edges. I think they're so pretty, and I'm so excited to see this. I've heard such good things. I don't think I've ever seen anything negative about this. Oh, and the font is bigger. Oh, I love that. I will see you when I next see you, when I have started a little bit of Better Than the Movies and I have thoughts and things to say. Hello! So it has been a few days. I have been thinking about what I was going to say, and I've been slammed with the fact that I fully thought it has been longer since the last time I spoke to you, and it has not, and that was wild. So the last time I spoke to you was Saturday the 19th when I finished In the Weeds, and I was going to be starting Better Than the Movies. I'm happy to say that I have started. I have not gotten very far, but it is currently Tuesday the 22nd, and I feel like it's been so much longer than just like 3 days. Like, I genuinely feel like it's been a week and a half or something. So I did start this, and I did get, I think I'm 11% in, 10 or 11 or something like that. So I'm at page 45 out of 349. So I've got about 300 pages left. I am happy to say that I was playing with the pages like that entire time, and the edges are still fine, so that's awesome. So let's talk about Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I will say that I am liking it so far. So many things are making sense already. The fact that it's better than the movies, and the fact that there's just so much emphasis on romance movies for the cover art all the way around. It makes a lot of sense. I would not say these are spoilers. This is sort of just information that you get within the first 2 chapters and also the prologue. But our main character is Liz Buxbaum, and she has been waiting her entire life for her movie fairy tale romance, and she's very picky about it. And you know what? Valid. She has learned all of her romantic habits from her mother, who is unfortunately dead now, but the 2 of them just always bonded over romance movies. They used to watch the DVDs together, and Liz still does. That is our main character. Now, the main boy is sort of up for debate. Technically, you would say that it's Wes, because he's kind of the big deal for the little blurb at the back, but there's also Michael. So, Wes and Michael have both been in Liz's life since they were all kids. They were all neighbors. They all lived on the same neighborhood, the same street. And while Wes was always picking on Liz and continues to this day to still torment her, Michael was not the same. So, the premise of this book is that Michael, when they were younger, actually had to move away. And in their senior year, in the last months of their senior year, right before prom, right before graduation, right before all of the most important things, but right after spring break, Michael comes back. And why wouldn't Liz think that it's literally fate? But the problem is that she doesn't really have an in to talk to Michael. They don't have any classes together. They don't really have any friends. But what they do have in common is Wes. He is her in to Michael, whether or not either of them likes it. So they strike a deal, and things are gonna go down. There are a few complications to this plan. First of all, Liz doesn't trust Wes. There is no way in hell, because he is her tormentor. In the first scenes of, basically in the first scene of chapter 1, the first scene of the book, Wes is already picking on her. He literally taped his parking ticket to her windshield, and it was a struggle to get off. So they're already not getting along. But they have to put that aside. And now a second little issue here is that Liz's absolute enemy, Lainey, I don't remember her last name. Lainey, what's your last name? Lainey Morgan. So Liz's absolute mortal enemy, Lainey Morgan, who is so mean, but nobody else realizes it and she doesn't get it. Unfortunately, Lainey already has an in with Michael because they're neighbors. And they've already been talking for a few weeks, and rumor has it they are this close to making it official. Which brings us to the next little obstacle, which is that Liz's best friend, Jocelyn, does not approve. Which is kind of like a mini obstacle, to be fair, because friends are iffy. But yeah, that is where we're at now. We are about to go to a party, which Wes invited Michael to. And Liz was like, hey, take me to this party. So they're about to go to this party and get things going and have, I don't know, conflicts, embarrassing moments probably. I feel like secondhand embarrassment is absolutely going to happen here. But also, they're just going to have the cutest moments ever. And I just want to talk about some of my first thoughts. So, my absolute first thought is that I really am wondering if these silhouettes on the front are going to be in the book, which, let me specify that, because technically they are, if that's not the cutest thing. But what I mean is, I wonder if they're going to be included in actual scenes or if they were just cute moments to be had, because they definitely could have gotten away with just doing different characters with their epic love moments from Liz's favorite movies, but instead, these are the same characters every time, which is Liz and Wes. So, I would love to see if these moments are actually going to be included in scene. Another thing that I wanted to discuss, which isn't a big deal at all, I just noticed it, and you probably won't be able to notice it as well, but the pages are super see-through. I can fully see, and I probably wouldn't have noticed this if not for that drawing, because you can, fully see through the page to the scene on the next page. You can fully see that there's something going on there. So that was a little off-putting. However, that's about the only thing that's sort of off-putting. I'm really enjoying this. It's definitely got the tone of YA, where you're a teenager and everything feels like the end of the world, and the things that are important to you are trivial in a few years. And honestly, reading this and getting those moments felt like coming home for me, because YA is my favorite age range. It's my favorite of all, most of my books are YA. Most of my 700 and something books are YA. So it just was so heartwarming. It makes me feel so good, especially in this tumultuous time of the end of the semester, I have 2 predictions. And I don't know whether or not anything's really going to happen with them, but I have 2 predictions. So the first is that Liz's dad actually got remarried a few years after her mom died, and Liz is on the outs with her stepmom and a little bit her dad too. So I'm wondering, or I think they might end up having a heart-to-heart scene where Liz reconciles her emotions and her grief for her mom with these new emotions and these new opportunities with her dad and her stepmom. And then the second thing is that I'm not sold on this, but I feel like it's a possibility that Wes has liked Liz for a while. It's not explicitly there because this is first person and it's first person in Liz's perspective, so we don't know what Wes is thinking. But from what we've seen so far, I am fully prepared to be told that he has had feelings for her and he has cared about her for a really long time, especially given that he's always pulling pranks on her and terrorizing her. It's definitely giving the boy who likes the girl, but the girl doesn't like the boy, so he picks on her to at least have some of her attention. It's definitely giving that. And honestly, in this case, I'm not mad at it because there is really no foul play, I feel like. I think sometimes that sort of situation where the boy picks on the girl can get a little bit too far, and then it might land in dark romance, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like the bully romances sometimes take it too far if he or whoever the bully is does bodily harm to the love interest. That is where I draw my line. So in this case, I feel like it's actually really cute and it's not icky because there's really no detrimental physical or mental harm being done to Liz. Like, genuinely, one of the biggest things that she comments on that he has done to her is the great gnome decapitation, which, if I remember correctly, was that Wes decapitated a gnome and then put the head in her room or something. But then there's also, I might be mixing that up with another one, which is this line that says, Wes was the kid who put a frog in her Barbie dream house. The monster who hid a lawn gnome's severed head in her little homemade neighborhood book exchange. That's what it was. They're things that are lasting, because who wouldn't remember a frog in your Barbie dream house or opening your little free library to a decapitated gnome's head? But they're not actually physically or any specific way actually hurting Liz. They're just inconveniences. And I am so happy for that. So I am really enjoying this, even though I'm only 45 pages in, and I'm very excited to keep going. It makes me very excited for some of the other books by Lynn Painter. I also have, so those are my initial thoughts. Like I said, I'm just enjoying it. I'm having a decent time. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And I will see you whenever I next see you, whenever I have thoughts or time, whenever that may be. I will see you. It's so good now, and I've still got like I'm not even like halfway through. I've still got so much more to go, and it's got to get better, and it's so good already. oh my gosh, it's been a few days. You just saw me reading last night though. Okay, and I am very, very, very happy to say that I am about 50% through, so I thought I would give you my thoughts as of right now, and they're overwhelmingly positive. I am loving this. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be able to read this. I just had my one actual test exam this morning, and I'm officially done now with that class, and I only have one thing to do for another class, 2 things to do for another class, and a handful of things to do for my last class. So I'm nearing the end of the semester, so I'm getting more and more time to read, and I'm so excited because I'm loving this, and like I said, I'm very excited to get to I'll Give You the Sun. But as for Better Than the Movies, oh my goodness, I was squealing, laughing. As you saw, I was having the time of my life last night. There was genuinely a part where I just stopped and looked at Junie, and through genuinely like girlhood laughing, giggling gibberish, I was just like, I mean, I wasn't even half, I'm not even technically, I'm at like 45%. But I basically was saying like, oh my gosh, I'm only like halfway through and things are already so good. How are they going to get better? How are they meant to get better? Oh my, cause it's amazing. It's so good. It's so good. Some stuff I will say, because it is a YA novel, I feel like a lot of things end up being very obvious. However, I definitely understand how it's not very obvious to Liz. I will say I still have been consistently playing with the corners, and not once have I seen any indication to the edges that I have messed up this book. I think at this point, things that I'm hoping I get to see are more baseball. I looked at a lot of like aesthetic and collage things about this book, and a lot of it said or was showing baseball, and I love baseball. I think the 3 hottest sports for me are soccer, ice hockey, and baseball. And you almost never get to see baseball in books anymore, I feel like, because hockey has just taken over. So I'm hoping for that. And I think that's all I'm hoping for, honestly, because I don't even know what to hope for at this point. Things are just so good. So, chapter 7, page 164, I'm about 45-50% of the way through, and I'm so excited to keep going. Okay, so I've made it to 200. I'm actually at 210, and I just realized that I had 2 other things that I wanted to talk about, and they're not spoilers. So the first is that all of this of the book, right? And it's only been like a week, if that. I forgot. It's been so long because I've been reading so many adult romances. Because I've been reading so many adult romances, I forgot what the timelines are like in YA contemporary romances. And if you don't know, they tend to be kind of short, actually. So, yeah. The other thing is, I don't think I like her best friend. Her best friend is Jocelyn. She was one of the kids from the neighborhood that hung out all the time when they were younger. And I don't think that I like her. She's very negative and pessimistic and kind of condescending towards towards Liz in general. Like, Liz's style, her personality, the things that she cares about, and Joss is just not very nice, and I don't appreciate it. god, Junie. Things are so good! Things are so good, Junie. So good. It's so good. You don't get it. I might just finish this tonight, but I think I have like so many more pages. Oh my god. 349. Oh my god, I thought I still had like 100 pages left. Junie, I only have like 70. Oh my. Okay, so I did not finish Better Than the Movies last night, but I did finish it today. Oh, this was adorable. Let me get the first thing just out of the way. Edges are fine. They are still just as dark as the rest of the book. They're still just as pretty and just as great as when I started. Now, let me get the other thing out of the way. I'm going to be giving this 4 stars. Before I finished reading it today, I only had, I think, like 60 or 50 pages left. And I was on the fence about whether or not this was going to be a 4 or a 3 star, actually, which is wild. But I just felt like, I don't know. Like, I loved this. I loved this so much. I liked it so much. It was so good. But I was just missing something, I guess. I think what it was for me, it was that Liz, our main character, was just in her head so much, and it was less about things actually happening and more about a self-discovery situation, I think. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not what I would have liked. Like, I loved the book. I liked the book. It was so great. But I loved the book and the characters so much that I wish we could have gotten more actually action happening in scenes and less of it just being so much of Liz in her head. However, I do think that it makes a lot of sense for the book and the story for Liz to be in her head as much as she was. That being said, let's talk about some of the other things. Like I said earlier, the pages are kind of thin, and I realized partway through, and once I realized it, I couldn't stop thinking about it, but the formatting for this book is a little bit weird because the words are very far into the spine, and there's like a good inch of space on the outside for no reason, and it's a little off. I am a little bit sad that there wasn't any baseball to actually be had. Literally, the story ends right before the first baseball game of the season, which sucks because I was excited for that, but I also understand. I was a little confused. I thought that the next story that is coming out with Liz and Wes, I thought it was them at prom, but then we actually go, like, prom is part of the book. So I wasn't expecting that because I thought there was something that was out into the world. And there might still be. I might just be really... Let me just... Because I know that there is a sequel coming out. Or is it out? I think it's out. It seems like it's out. I'm so confused. Alias me no. Oh, okay. I thought, I've got myself all caught up now. So Better Than the Movies is the first one. Nothing Like the Movies is the second one, which follows them in college. But then Better Than the Prom is a short story in Wes's point of view. Okay, I thought that Prom wasn't in this. I guess I thought that the second book was going to be Prom. I don't know what I thought now, honestly. That's not the point though. But after having read this, I think I would love to continue reading Lynn Painter, and I would love to continue reading these books. Honestly, like, I need Better Than the Prom and Nothing Like the Movies now. I do like how the whole idea of the movies in general is actually in the story, like the movies, the songs, and the fact that that is a thing that works with the title and the plot and the characters. I loved that, because I think a lot of the times titles are just for funsies. I think that can definitely be a thing, but I really like when they're actually a thing. Like, for example, movies and soundtracks to movies, specifically rom-coms, are an integral part into who Liz is as a character, as a person, and it plays a huge role in the plot and the development of relationships as well. So it makes a lot of sense that it's better than the movies. And then, as we read earlier, in the weeds, there is literally a line in the book that's in the weeds. So I love when titles do things like that, when they're part of the book rather than just, named after the main character or something. Like, I love that. I will say I'm a little bit sad that some of the things I was hoping were going to happen didn't happen. Not just baseball, but also, like I said, the pictures I thought would happen, but they did not. I think the closest one is this one. So I'm a little bit sad about that, but I'm not devastated by it. I think what happens in the story makes a lot more sense. It was very fun to see how Liz just dealt with things, encountered things, handled things. There were some things that I also did want to see happen, or that I had guessed, or something along those lines that did happen, which was very, very fun and fulfilling. And it was just such a good time. I think I really, really enjoy Lynn Painter's specific writing style. Yeah, like I said, she was in her head a lot, but I feel like it just made sense for the character, and it definitely gave me a sense of Lynn Painter's writing style, just because, like, when there was actual talking happening, it was also very real and organic, and everything just felt right and felt like it was done right. I think some of my favorite parts of the book were whenever Liz was sort of having an internal battle with herself about whether or not she was right about her assumptions of Wes over the years, and also whenever they were hanging out with his friends. It was really fun because we got to see how her relationship with them developed, and it was really, really cute and wholesome towards the end, and I really enjoyed that. And I think also something that I really, really loved was whenever there were differences made or drawn between Wes and Michael, I think it was very, very important towards Liz and just her development, not just as a character, but also her development in her feelings and relationships with all of the characters, because she was just spending so much time trying to do what she thought her mom would want and focusing on that rather than what she might have wanted, but she was also focusing on sort of surface level things and taking things at face value. And I think this book really, just the events and everything, helped Liz to understand that there's more to people than just one thing, and it was really, really nice. I will say, without spoilers, really, I think you can infer that some things have happened in here without it being a spoiler, but I will try not to be that person. But I will say something that I had mentioned earlier was that I did not like Liz's friends, and at the end of the book, I'm okay. We've reconciled. I still don't think I necessarily like her friend Jocelyn, but we have reconciled, and it's okay. You don't have to love every character in a book, even if you love that book. You don't have to love everything about a book, even if you love that book. So, all in all, I just really enjoyed this book. I did give it 4 just because there were just a few shortcomings for me, but I think going into, first of all, Better Than the Prom, but then also Nothing Like the Movies might be a little bit more enjoying, a little bit more, what am I even trying to say? A little bit more satisfying for me. Just because Better Than the Prom is in Wes's point of view and Nothing Like the Movies is them a little bit older. But with that being said, I think this vlog is definitely shaping up really well. From the 2 books that I've already read for this, that we've read, I've already gotten 2 4 stars, which is great. So I'm very excited to go start this. I've had this for so long. I've tried to read it before, and I'm still very interested in it. I think the story premise and everything is so interesting. It's one of those quirky sort of young adult novels with a few just things that are a little bit outside of the realm of contemporary while still staying contemporary. And it is a dual point of view between 2 twins, a boy and a girl, and it is just so interesting to me. So I'm very excited to go start this, and I have planned out my weekend so I can have Saturday to continue to read. So I'm going to go back with Junie, who was like in my spot, and I'm going to start I'll Give You the Sun. And whenever I have some thoughts, I will tell you, because I love to talk. I have just finished the first chapter, and it is in Noah's point of view, and I don't like him. Truly do not like him. However, I am suspecting this might have a thing to do with perspective. It is first-person perspective throughout the entire book, no matter which perspective, which twin we are following. So there is that. So there is definitely the chance that once I start reading Jude, that I feel differently about it. But after having read in Noah's perspective, I just don't like him. He has a very sort of, in my opinion at least, victim complex, and I'm already over it. However, to be fair, he is 13. So there's definitely that. I think this might have to do with the author Jandy Nelson, but sometimes the voice of this is a little bit off. You know how there's that discourse around siblings calling their parents either my mom, our mom, etc.? I see that a lot in here between just how Noah thinks of himself versus how he thinks of himself with Jude or just Jude, because most of the time he seems to just clump them together, which is valid. I mean, my sister and I, we're 3 years apart, and we were always clumped together. We're still kind of clumped together all the time, and we're not even twins. So I definitely understand that, but then sometimes there are lines that feel a little off where they're not clumped together anymore. Like, for example, there's this one part where it says, when Jude speaks, she sounds like she did when she was little, her voice made of tinsel. And I just found that as a bit oddly striking, because instead of saying she sounds like she did when we were little, it's she sounds like she did when she was little. And I feel like on the one hand that could just be an oversight, but on the other hand that could also be seen as an extension of how Noah feels, because he spends so much time of his first chapter expressly detailing how smushed, and that's exactly what he says, smushed together the twins are. And so that could possibly just be like an oversight sort of line that was just used and moved on from, but I feel like it could also be something, like I said, that reflects on Noah, because he sees Jude as more of a full entity, and less like he is also a full entity, sort of like Jude can exist without Noah, but Noah can't exist without Jude. And that was just something that really struck me. There is something else that's definitely going to have a play in here, and it's not a spoiler, it's literally in the first chapter, but the dynamics between the family in general are absolutely going to be integral to the story. I can't imagine it any other way. There is a lot of discourse around who the favorite child is for different family members. They talk about the grandmother, the mom, the dad, and it's just interesting how we see that, because on the one hand it seems that Noah loves his sister, but on the other hand it seems that Noah lives for his sister's detriment, and that's just wild to me. I know for myself at least, no matter what sort of shortcomings there were with my relationship with my sister, because we're very close now, we were not when we were younger, but in all that time, I have never once wanted her to be jealous of me or to think less of herself because of me or because of how other people feel about me. And it's just seeming like Noah is fooling himself into thinking that he does not have any ill will towards his sister, when in reality his, at least train of thought, definitely leans that way. And it's just bizarre to read that sort of juxtaposition going on. Regardless of my feelings of Noah thus far, I am intrigued to keep going and excited to find out what happens with them, mostly with Jude, but I'm still intrigued. I'm invested. Hello, and welcome home. I want to start off by apologizing that there are not more clips of me reading I'll Give You the Sun. Unfortunately, the move-out timeline and my mental state in the process was just all over the place. When I started I'll Give You the Sun, I think there was something that I was keeping in the back of my mind that I didn't mention with you guys, which is that I've actually read a book from Jandy Nelson before. I don't actually know if this author has more books out now. These are the only two I'm personally familiar with, and this other one has actually had a very big impact on my life, the writing style, the structure, the formatting, the voice, all the things, and it is The Sky Is Everywhere. And now I wasn't sure if I was going to like I'll Give You the Sun as much as, or even in any sort of way compared to The Sky Is Everywhere, because the things that I really enjoy about this book that I just mentioned, I wasn't sure if they were going to be a reflection on the author or just something that was specifically done for this book. Jandy Nelson has a very specific tonal voice, and I really like it. There's always some sort of structuring format that's very unique. Like in this one, there are poems all over. The Sky Is Everywhere is Jandy Nelson's debut novel, so I wasn't sure how this was going to impact this. That being said, I think I have ruminated in my thoughts enough to be able to explain exactly what I'm thinking. I had a brief sort of fleeting thought while reading I'll Give You the Sun, and it's stuck with me ever since, and I think I finally deciphered that thought, which was, first of all, Jandy Nelson has a very strong sense of whimsy in their writing, and I really like it personally. I think it's done really well. I think it's handled really well. I think it's balanced with realistic elements really well, and the believability of what's going on is decently high. But at the same time, there are a lot of heavy themes that are being juggled in both of these books. Some of them are the same between them, some of them are different. There is definitely a Venn diagram to be drawn here. That brought me to an idea that I got from class once, where we talked about the difference between a tragic comedy or a comedic tragedy. So that brought me to this thought that I then spent a lot of last night, instead of sleeping, trying to decipher and figure out, which was the difference between a melancholic whimsy or whimsical melancholy. And I think I've definitely figured it out. So, between these two books, I would say The Sky Is Everywhere is melancholic whimsy, and I'll Give You the Sun is whimsical melancholy. And I figured out why. This book is just a single point of view, and it is the story of a girl trying to decipher her life and get through the summer and get through so many things after the death of her sister. So in this one, themes like grief and mourning are very, very heavy and in the forefront. However, with I'll Give You the Sun, the difference is that I think it has to do with the dual point of views. Noah's point of view is before tragedy or any sort of melancholy sort of strikes the twins, but Jude's is after, and it's a decent amount after, enough that her parts of the book are told in tandem between the past and the present, enough that those same themes of grief and mourning are not quite so heavy as they are in I'll Give You the Sun. So, in my own opinion, I would say that this is melancholic whimsy with a forefront of heavy themes on grief, death, mourning, with a background in whimsy within poems and eccentric characters and eccentric ideals and habits, versus this one is whimsical melancholy, which is a forefront of the whimsical nature of an artist and someone who believes in hogwash or just fun, magical things, with a background in grief, death, mourning, and how to live with it. Which brings me to this book much more in depth. I've said before, I liked Jude a lot more than Noah, and I felt the same way for the majority of this book. And once I got to the end, when lots of things were starting to make much more sense, I think I figured out exactly why, and I will say that there was character growth all around. So, I think with Jude, it was a little bit easier to be okay with the decisions she was making and the way she was acting because she was older. And even though she's still a child, she's 16, they're both 16 at that point, she's old enough to understand and know the consequences of her decisions and her actions, and therefore, she's not making such drastic or harmful decisions as might have been done between both of the twins, to be fair, when they were between the ages of 13 and 14, which was the timeline of Noah. Now, going back to Noah, I think the reason I disliked him more than Jude, even though I've just relented that they were both not doing the best when they were younger, especially towards each other, was that it was in his perspective. So we got to see his train of thought, no matter how justified or not justified it might have seemed. And I think just the fact that he was younger and I'm older and I would expect a little bit more from somebody at that age was why I was so negative towards him. But like I said, we got lots of character growth, lots of resolutions, so now I'm not very mad at Noah, especially given some of the things that he's done later on and the fact that it's not just Jude who he has harmed in this book in some way, shape, or form, anything. So now I'm okay with the twins. Looking back, I'm not mad at either one more than the other. If you can hear the lawnmower, I'm sorry. I live in a small town where when one person mows their lawn, the entire town has to. Which brings me to my next point, which is that I love how really fleshed out this book feels versus I'll Give You the Sun, which, while it is decently fleshed out, I feel like there are a lot of things that were left open-ended, which I think is on purpose, and there's a lot of other things that we see in this book that we don't see in this book. For example, the idea of the characters, obviously given that this is told between two different years, two different ages of the main characters, we get to see their growth and their changes between that time, but also we get to see that in secondary characters, and not just in the main and secondary characters. We get to see a lot of evolution done with the background characters as well, which I think was so nice. It was so good to see them come back into the story, see them introduced in different ways. Sometimes we would see background characters introduced in Jude's point of view, but then also see them later in Noah's, or we would see them introduced in Noah's, but then also see them later and older in Jude's. And it was very interesting just to see the way that Jandy Nelson was portraying the idea of people growing and progressing and evolving and becoming different versions of themselves, which was also a very big theme in this book. So I think it makes so much sense that it was not just the main characters that were focused on, and it was not just the secondary characters that were given the courtesy of being fleshed out and getting some sort of attention. I thought that was really nice. And then I think the very last thing that I wanted to comment on was an idea that has a little bit of a funny backstory, actually, that I went back to campus on Friday and I had my last lecture. It was for my creative writing workshop class. We talked about the idea of the novel, the characters driving the story rather than the writer. So the idea is that this thing would happen, which in turn would be the direct reason for why the next thing would happen, and the direct reason why the next thing would happen. It's an idea that I think is very, very present in I'll Give You the Sun. It was very fun to see. It was definitely starting to become a little bit present in the middle of the book, and then once we were wrapping things up, it was becoming very, very, very obvious. I think the idea of these sort of mythical, whimsical, magical elements that were brought in made a lot of sense, a lot more sense at the very least at the end, and I just love it. I think it was something that was done in The Sky Is Everywhere, but it wasn't able to have so much of these loose ends come together to really tie this sort of messy bow at the end, because it's just one character. But with I'll Give You the Sun, given that we had two main characters, two different times, and a lot more things happening and a lot more things to be resolved, I think it was just so fun. A good example is just that Jude's mentor knows her as CJ because of her nickname at school, and as a result, that makes her identity a big reveal, which is actually a direct result for a lot of things that end up happening later on, and I was waiting. There's one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and it makes me so happy in my writer heart. While I was reading, there was definitely some sketchy things going on. I could feel a twist coming up, and I'm so proud of myself to say that I absolutely saw it coming. I knew exactly what it was. I knew what it was even like decently before it was hinted at. I was just like, I see it, I know it, I'm here, I'm seated, I'm prepared. I will say that while I did know that the twist was coming, while I was prepared for the twist, I was not prepared for all of the things that went alongside it. There were a lot of things that were happening with the characters, with the plot, with past and present situations within the story that I did not account for nor guess. So a few of them were a little bit shocking. I did get there a little bit. Like, sometimes I was getting there beforehand, sometimes I wasn't. But I'm still proud of myself for at least being able to catch on to that. That all to say, the last thing that I actually wanted to say was that given how everything was tied together and there were no consequences, like everything was happening for a reason and things were resolved in the end, I specifically mentioned earlier that this book was tied up into a messy bow, and I would say that instead of a tidy bow or a clean bow or anything along those sort of lines in that connotation, specifically because it's not fully resolved. There are the possibilities for things, obviously, and that's a big theme in the book, that there are possibilities for lots of things. There's the possibility for second chances and mistakes, and it's life, and that's the whole point, basically. So I would say that this is a book that gets tied up, but into a messy bow. Lots of strings put together, lots of ideas coming together, so many things, and I think it comes together really well. Which brings me to the part that you have probably been anticipating the most. What am I rating this book? Well, I was flip-flopping between a 4 and a 5 for a good while. Like, I genuinely just read like half of this book last night, and the entire time I didn't even get to bed until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had finished reading the book at like midnight and I was still thinking about it. So I was flip-flopping back and forth between 4 and 5. I could not figure it out, and then I had the mindset that if I can't choose between the two, then that should mean that it's a 4, because if it's going to be a 5, then I should know. I shouldn't have any sort of doubts that it's a 5. It should just be a 5. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to give it a 4, but then I wasn't done. So then I kept reading, and then I finished the book, and I knew this was a 5-star. It's so good. This is the kind of book that you could go back and read again, look for certain clues and Easter eggs, red herrings, anything that, whatever you want to call it, and you could get more insight into what's happening. There's so many things in retrospect that make sense, and what I really enjoyed was that even while we were learning all of these things in retrospect, so was Jude. As the revelations were coming out, she was thinking back on so much stuff between what happened with her and Noah and all the other things, and it was just so good. It was done so well. So, yes, this is a 5, which I think is really, really, really good, because in total, that means we have had a very, very, very successful vlog. 2 4s and a 5. I would not have guessed that. I am a very, very, very picky 5-star rater. My sister and I like to say that I'm more easily entertained, but I'm pickier with my ratings, and she's less easily to be entertained, but she is a lot more lenient with her ratings. So the fact that I have gotten 3 books already just in this one vlog that are such high ratings is wild. And I'm so happy for that. Like, I did not expect that to happen with these books at all. I had suspicions with I'll Give You the Sun, but I definitely was not expecting either of the other 2 to be so high, especially because In the Weeds is the second book, and I gave the first book a 3. Also because while I of course loved Better Than the Movies, sometimes a young adult romance can fall a little bit flat. But I think all of these books did just so well, balancing all the themes that they were doing. It wasn't just a static sort of romance or a static young adult novel. They were all dynamic. They had so many things going on, and it was all balanced really well. And I'm so happy that we did this. I'm so happy these were the books that I picked. I'm so excited for summer. However, with that said, that is the end of the video. We've done it. We've read spring books in spring at a very good time to read them. It was lovely to have something to take my mind off the end of the semester. It was lovely to talk with you and to be here and to do this, and I had so much fun. It was so great, and I'm so happy with the books that I've read and what I've rated them, and I'm so happy with this video, and I hope you are too. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Maybe, hopefully the next time you see me, my hair is fixed and we can get fixing this room. But that is the end of the video. So, te aprecio mucho y mi corazón es tuyo para siempre. Adiós!